This is Assin Manso slave river site. Learning about the transatlantic slave trade through slave routes and the site they had their last bath, held as captive in the dungeons and finally shipped to a world unknown. See the tombs of two slaves returned from USA and Jamaica, whose return tagged the door of no return as the door of return. Departing Accra early in the morning, you will take a 3-hour journey to the Assin Manso slave river site. This site used to serve as a slave market and best known for being the place where the slaves had their last bath in African waters. After sorting, the fit ones were sent to the forts along the coast where they were locked up in the cells for months before shipment across the Atlantic to a place and a future unknown. Let us now take you through an emotional tour.
Assin Manso slave river site was the biggest market during the transatlantic slave trade era. It was documented by one British historian known as W.E. Ward in his book entitled The Short History of Ghana. Although there were some slave markets like the Piccolo slave market at the Upper East region of Ghana, Salaga market at the northern parts of Ghana, Kitikrachi market and other markets as well, but Assin Manso slave market here in the central region of Ghana and that of Salaga market at the northern part played a major role during the trade. So enslaved Africans that were captured from the upper borders of Ghana like the Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger and some parts of Nigeria, they were made to march in chains and shackles, barefooted and half naked to the Salaga market at the north. It was in the Salaga market that they were given the first opportunity to rest. So after resting for a while, they were again made to march in chains and shackles, barefooted and half naked, from the Salaga market to Assin Manso slave market here, which was 300 miles by foot. During that era, because we were marching through the forest parts of our country, a lot of our brothers and sisters were exposed to many dangers while marching us from the north down to Assin Manso. Some of us were bitten by snakes, others were attacked by wild animals, others suffered punishments and cruelty from the slave raiders. So according to oral history, a lot of our brothers and sisters lost their lives while making the journey from Salaga market to Assin Manso slave river site. One of our greatest challenge was at the Pra River, crossing the Pra River. Basically, it was the survivor and the fittest. So those of our brothers and sisters who were weak and couldn't continue with the journey, when we landed at the riverside, those who couldn't make the trip were taken off their chains and shackles and were dumped in the river to die. So when we landed here at Assin Manso, this was the place that we were sorted out according to age and gender. By determining our ages, a device called a speculum oris is put into our mouth. Open our mouth, count our teeth, thereby forecasting our ages. After which we were made to take our last bath here before being sold to the merchant. After selling us again, we were made to march in chains and shackles, barefooted and half naked, to the Cape Coast Castle, which was 35 miles from here, because that was where the slave ship was being docked. Now, Assin Manso is one place that is very, very vital for your connection with your ancestors. When you come in through the gate, you realize the gate is very short. It is another way of indirectly allowing us to pay our respect to our great ancestors, that is Madam Krista and Samuel Cousin. One may ask, who is Madam Krista and Samuel Cousin. Now, when we are coming through to the ancestral path, we came across one beautiful plant called the mimosa plant. And this plant has an indigenous knowledge to tell when it comes to the history of slavery. It's a very sensitive plant. Immediately you touch it, it shrinks or it's crumpled. During the era of slavery, the perception out there was we never fought and we just allow our ancestors to be taken away. But this mimosa plant is one evidence to show that indeed our ancestors fought for all that happened. The mimosa plant was one of the plants that were planted during the era of slavery because we didn't have the ammunition as compared to what the raiders were having. We were killed and killed. So to avoid us from being captured, we started hiding in caves and mountains so that we will not be captured. So at our hideout, we grew some of these plants at the strategically placed positions around the caves. So the plant, mimosa plant, informed our decision whether it's safe to come out or not. So early in the morning, the leader of the group will peep through the tiny holes around the caves to see whether the plant is open. So if the plant is open, then they suspect it is safe and you can come out and do whatever you feel like doing. But when the plant is closed, they suspect it is not safe. I always say to my brothers and sisters that whenever you come into your roots, you don't come here for sightseeing. You come to have a connection with your ancestors. Because your ancestors are always waiting for you to come to them. Now we have a particular path which is called the slave route, which was developed by the feet of our ancestors. So most at times, which is not binding on us though, we go through that path with our shoes off. To understand who we are as Africans, you cannot just use the face value to understand who we are as Africans, but rather, you need to go into the spirit realms before you understand who a true African is. So we are coming here to fortify ourselves, to build our souls and to build our spirits and connect with our ancestors. So walking on that sacred path, we mostly go with our shoes off. We have a whole lot of reasons why we go with our shoes off. But I would love to give you 4 of such reasons why we go with our shoes off. For me, Kofi, I believe that my ancestors were not selfish. Because if they were, they could have taken their lives through all these sufferings. And there will not be you, and there will not be me. It is at the back of our great ancestors that you and I are alive. So today, if we've had the opportunity to come back visiting our ancestors, we are basically telling them that we don't deserve to walk on the same path that they did. But because we are their children, they should accept us and allow us to walk on the same path that they did. So that with that, we will know that when we came visiting our ancestors, they accept us only, and for us, it is our duty to always pay respect to our ancestors. The reason why we go with our shoes off is a fact. The land that we are walking on is ours. but because of circumstances, we are not together. So if today we have the opportunity to come back to our root, then there is a need for us to have a covenant with our own land. How do you get a covenant with your own land? It's by walking barefooted, so that the soil of the ground will rub under your feet for your ancestors to know you by your real name, but not by your slave name. And if that happens, it makes your ancestors so much excited, because they know when you heard about their story, you came all over to connect and to be with them. The third reason why we go with our shoes off is just for an experience, so that when you have the opportunity to say it to your brothers and sisters, you're going to say it from your heart, but not from your head. The last one is because our brothers and sisters were buried right at the slave cemetery, which we call the bamboo cemetery. So before going to them, you can't go to them without alerting them of your coming. So by walking barefooted, they will be able to know that indeed their daughter, Efia, Amma, Ajua, their son, Kofi, Kojo, Yao, is coming. So before you get there, your guardian angels are already seated, waiting to answer whatever you brought on board. Now when we get to the slave river, that is the river that our ancestors were made to take their last bath. During that era, when they were bringing them from Salaga to Assin Manso, most of them become so weak and feeble that when they landed in the slave market, in the slave camp, they couldn't make the cut. So those of our brothers and sisters, so after that, we have a river called Amma Emisa right opposite the Donkorkuo. This river is where our ancestors are ready to give us all that we've asked for. This is where we go to the river, touch the river, and just say our wish. After saying our wishes, we just threw a coin in the river to thank our ancestors for being there for us and to bringing us back to our roots. After which we all come together as Africans and we congratulate each other for making this journey. Brothers and sisters, I entreat you all to visit Assin Manso Slave River site. It's a place that you never regret visiting. It's a place that you would have this connection with your ancestors, which is real. You're going to be having dreams, and you'll be having the interpretations yourself. Come to your roots. We're waiting for you.